I'm Claudia Chinyere Akole. I'm an artist based in Sydney. I'm an illustrator, designer, cartoonist and animator. I work in TV broadcast doing news graphics for my day job. I also teach in the Faculty of Design at UTS, and outside of that I have my own practice making comics and illustrations and zines, both freelance and for my own personal work. I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. I was always a very artistic kid. My mum always pushed me towards art. When I was growing up, I consumed a ton of video games, a ton of anime, a ton of manga. I was constantly reading comics and consuming comics, but I never thought about making them myself at all. I don't know why I didn't put two and two together, but it wasn't until I graduated and my final subject that I did was an elective for Viz Narrative with Finn McCabe, and that was where I made my first comic, and it just kind of snowballed from there, where I realized I love comics and this is the best. That's kind of what I want to be doing with my own work. I love working with colour in a way where I think about them as values, so I love working to restraints. I mostly work with traditional materials. Posca paint markers are what I work with the most. So I'm already really constrained in the colour palette that I use because I can only go so far as choosing a different texture colour. And it's caused this really interesting problem-solving approach in my work where I'm really just thinking about how three colours work together, but pink has definitely become the staple. I actually grew up hating pink. My sister and I are really close in age, and my mum used to dress us as twins. My sister really hated this, so the compromise was that I would wear a pink or red version of an outfit and she would wear a blue or green version of the outfit. So by the time I was a teenager, I went through my tomboy phase and hated girly things. I just put on the fast that I hated the colour pink. As an adult, I just realised it's the best and it looks good with everything, and so I just decided to own it and kind of paste it all over everything that I create ever. I make what I call tracing paper comics, which is where I use multiple layers of tracing paper to create finished comic art, as opposed to using tracing paper how you normally would in art practice, which is as a transfer paper or as a part of the process, and it gets inevitably emitted from the final product. But through all my years of making art, I always loved using tracing paper, and so by the time I was an adult and I realised I could do whatever I wanted, I realised I loved tracing paper the most out of the process of creating something, so why not use it for the final product, and why not force myself to work with multiple layers as the final product, and why not force myself to see what kind of new combination I can create in the comic medium with something I personally haven't seen before. I actually have been asked a lot recently by design students and art students who've kind of reached out to me to ask if my background, my ethnicity, my race influences the work that I create, or if it influences how I approach my work. The answer that I generally always give is that every single professional decision I make, every single creative decision I make, and every single personal decision I make will inevitably be driven by my identity, and will inevitably be driven by my background, because this is who I am. So from the perspective of a black mixed race, first gen Aussie city gal, that's always going to be the place where everything I do is coming from. And so of course it influences my work, but probably in implicit ways, in ways that aren't really blatant, but to me that's definitely always a factor. Art has always kind of been an outlet for me to either figure out what's going on in my own head, or to just kind of eject something that I'm sick of dwelling on. So most of my art making practice, especially comics, have been kind of about utilising the fact that this medium can hold absolutely any kind of story. And so I realised that sharing my own stories and kind of reframing my own experiences is a really cathartic kind of exercise for me. And so I've ended up kind of just settling on making work that's mostly autobiographical and mostly based on my own experiences, which I never thought of when I first started making art. But this is definitely the most kind of conductive way I can approach my practice. And when I have had freelance work come by, or clients come by, or people asking me to make work for them, because of the sheer amount of personally driven work that I'm putting out there, for the most part people kind of ask for the same thing from me. You can find more of my work at claudinsky.com or at Claudinsky on Instagram. I pretty much post all of my illustrations, comics, self-published stuff there, and also all of my freelance work there as well.